The iron gates of Blackwood Manor stood like silent sentinels against the gray, churning sky. The estate was a monstrosity of architectural prowess, a sprawling expanse of obsidian stone and glass perched on the jagged cliffs of the Atlantic coast. For 30 years, this house had been the envy of the state. It was a symbol of unyielding power, a fortress built by a man who refused to lose. But today, the man standing outside the gates did not look like a winner. He didn't even look like he belonged on the same side of the street as the manor. Elias Thorne, the founder of Thorne Global Dynamics, stood shivering in the biting wind. The salt spray from the ocean below coated his skin, stinging the cracks in his lips. He wore a heavy woolen coat that was 3 sizes too big, stained with motor oil and smelling of damp earth. His trousers were frayed at the hem, dragging over boots that had holes in the soles. A knitted cap was pulled low over his eyes, hiding the sharp, intelligent gaze that had once made Wall Street tremble. He carried a single black plastic garbage bag. Inside it was everything he owned in this persona. A spare pair of socks, a bottle of water, and a photo of his mother. He stared up at the marble driveway. He remembered the day he poured that concrete. He remembered the feeling of the pen in his hand when he signed the deed. He remembered bringing his newborn son, Julian, through those doors, promising him the world. Did I give them too much? Elias thought, the wind howling around him. Did I build a home, or did I build a cage of gold that rotted their souls? For the last week, Elias had been a ghost. He had walked the streets of the city he helped build, invisible to the people who worked in his towers. He slept in a shelter. He ate from soup kitchens. He felt the crushing weight of being nobody. But that physical suffering was nothing compared to the terror of what he was about to do. He was about to murder the image of Elias Thorne, the billionaire, to see if Elias Thorne, the father, had ever truly existed to his family. Before we walk through those gates and witness a judgment that will break your heart, please take a moment to support Kindness Lights. We are building a community here, a sanctuary for those who believe that in a world of algorithms and profits, the human heart still matters. If you want to support this mission, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your perspective in the comments. Your interaction acts as a beacon, helping these stories reach the people who need them most. Now, let us begin. To understand the test, you must understand the man. Elias didn't start in a boardroom. He started in a coal mine in West Virginia. He was 6 years old when he saw his father crushed by a collapse, not of rock, but of debt. His father died owing the company store more than he had earned in a lifetime. At the funeral, standing in the rain with holes in his shoes, Elias made a blood oath. He would never be at the mercy of another man. He would never be cold. He would never be hungry. He fought his way out. He worked 3 jobs while studying engineering at night. He invented a logistics algorithm that revolutionized shipping. By 30, he was a millionaire. By 40, he was a titan. Thorne Global Dynamics moved everything from medical supplies to steel across the 7 seas. But as his bank account grew, his dinner table grew quiet. His wife, Beatrice, stopped asking about his day and started asking about his limit. His brother, Silas, stopped being his partner and started being a parasite. His son, Julian, grew up believing that consequence was a word for poor people. The realization hit Elias on his 60th birthday. A gala was thrown in his honor. 300 guests, champagne that cost more than a car. But when Elias looked around the room, he realized something terrifying. If I fell down dead right now, the only thing my family would worry about is the inheritance tax. That thought was a cancer. It ate at him until he couldn't sleep. He had to know. He had to strip away the gold plating to see if there was any iron underneath. So, he executed Project Zero. He transferred temporary control of the holdings to a blind trust. He froze the liquid assets. He orchestrated a narrative of catastrophic failure, a Ponzi scheme rumor, a failed merger, a total collapse. And he became this beggar, standing at his own gate. Elias punched the code into the keypad. His fingers, numb from the cold, fumbled. The gates groaned open, the heavy steel complaining against the wind. He began the long walk up the driveway. The perfectly manicured hedges seemed to judge his disarray. He could hear music drifting from the terrace. It was Sunday. Brunch. They would be there, eating lobster Benedict, drinking mimosas, laughing. As he rounded the final bend, the house came into full view. On the expansive stone patio, they sat, a tableau of wealth. Beatrice was reclining on a chaotic lounge chair, wearing oversized sunglasses. Silas was smoking a Cuban cigar, gesturing wildly as he told a story. Julian was scrolling on a tablet, looking bored. And then there was Clara, his youngest. She was 22, sitting slightly apart from the others, sketching in a notebook. She was the only one not wearing designer logos. She looked peaceful. Elias stepped onto the patio. The sound of his dragging boots scraped against the expensive stone. Silas was the first to look up. He squinted through the smoke. What the hell? Security! How did a bum get past the gate? Julian looked up, annoyed. Did someone leave the service entrance open? Beatrice lowered her sunglasses. She peered at the figure. Her eyes widened. She gasped, dropping her glass. It shattered, orange juice and champagne splashing onto her silk robe. Elias? She whispered. The name cut through the wind. Julian stood up, his chair scraping loudly. Dad? What is? Is this a joke? Is this for a magazine cover? Elias didn't answer immediately. He let the silence stretch. He let them take in the dirt on his face, the grease in his hair, the pathetic trash bag on his shoulder. It's gone, Elias croaked. His voice was rusty, unused to speaking above a whisper for days. What's gone? Silas asked, stepping forward, his face twisting in confusion. Everything, Elias said. The company, the accounts, the liquidity, the fraud investigation. It was real. They froze it all this morning. I have nothing left. He dropped the bag. It hit the ground with a dull thud. I had to run, Elias lied, weaving the narrative he had practiced. They took the penthouse. They took the cars. This house, the bank, will be here in a week to foreclose. The reaction was not one of concern. It was not one of fear for him. It was an explosion of narcissism. Foreclose? Beatrice shrieked, standing up. What do you mean foreclose? I have the charity ball next month. I can't be homeless, Elias. I can't be. Poor. You idiot. Silas threw his cigar down. I told you that merger was risky. I told you. My stipend. What about my monthly stipend? Julian looked at his father with pure, unadulterated disgust. I have friends coming over later. You look like a sewer rat. Dad, seriously, you need to leave. You can't be seen here like this. It ruins my brand. I need a place to stay, Elias said, his voice trembling. He held out a dirty hand. I need my family, just for a while. Until I can find work. Until I can fix this. Work? Julian laughed, a cold, sharp sound. You're 60 years old. You're washed up. And you want to stay here? In the house you lost? There's no room, Beatrice said quickly, turning away, unable to look at him. The guest rooms are being renovated, and the staff. It would be awkward for the staff to see the master of the house looking like a beggar. Go to a hotel, Silas sneered. Use whatever cash you hid away. I have no cash, Elias said softly. I have nothing. Then go to a shelter, Silas shouted. Just get out of my sight. You make me sick. You failed us. Elias stood there taking the bullets. Each word was a confirmation of his worst fears. They didn't love him. They loved the shade he provided. Now that the tree was cut down, they hated the stump. He turned to leave. He reached for his trash bag, his heart turning to stone. Dad. The voice was quiet, but it stopped him in his tracks. Clara stood up. She dropped her sketchbook. Her eyes were filled with tears, but not of anger, of heartbreak. She walked across the patio, ignoring her mother's hiss of, Clara, sit down. She stopped in front of Elias. She didn't look at the dirt. She looked at his hands, the hands that had built an empire, now trembling with cold. You're not going anywhere, she said. Clara, don't be stupid, Julian snapped. He's toxic assets now. He's our father, Clara screamed, spinning around to face them. Her voice cracked with fury. He gave you everything. He paid for your cars, your degrees, your failures, and the moment he stumbles, you kick him." She turned back to Elias. She reached out and hugged him. She pressed her clean cheek against his dirty coat. She smelled the diesel and the sweat, and she didn't pull away. "Come with me," she whispered. "We'll go to the caretaker's cottage down by the cliffs. It has a fireplace. I'll make it warm." Elias couldn't speak. He simply nodded, letting his daughter lead him away from the wolves and into the only sanctuary he had left. The next 7 days were a revelation. Elias moved into the small stone cottage at the edge of the estate. It was drafty and smelled of pine needles, but to him, it felt more like a home than the mansion ever had. Clara moved in with him. She slept on the lumpy sofa so he could have the single bed. On the second day, Elias woke up at dawn. Old habits. He walked out to the main garden. He saw the weeds growing near the rose bushes, the roses he had planted for Beatrice 10 years ago. He knelt down and began to pull them. Silas walked past him on the way to the tennis courts. He stopped, looking down at Elias with a sneer. "Finally found your level, haven't you, Elias?" Silas laughed. "Gardener? It suits you. Hey, you missed a spot over there." He kicked a pile of dirt onto Elias's boot and walked away whistling. Elias said nothing. He kept weeding. On the 4th day, the food supply in the main house was cut off. Beatrice had given orders to the kitchen staff. "No food for the cottage. We are conserving resources." Clara didn't complain. She drove her small hatchback to the grocery store. She bought rice, beans, and cheap vegetables with her own money. That evening, she cooked a stew. They sat at the tiny wooden table, the wind howling outside. "I'm sorry, Clara," Elias said, looking at his bowl. "This isn't the life you were promised." Clara smiled, dipping a piece of bread into the broth. "Dad, do you remember when I was little? You used to read me stories about knights and dragons. You told me that a knight isn't a knight because of his shiny armor. He's a knight because he protects people." She reached across the table and held his hand. "You're still my knight. Armor or no armor?" Elias had to look away to hide the moisture in his eyes. On the 6th day, the breaking point arrived. Elias was sweeping the leaves from the main driveway. Julian drove up in his sports car, one of the few assets he was frantically trying to hide from the seizure. He almost clipped Elias with the side mirror. Julian rolled down the window. "Watch it, old man. I'm trying to get this appraised before the feds show up." "Julian," Elias said, leaning on the broom, "I need to talk to you. I have an idea to save the company. I just need you to listen." "Listen to you?" Julian scoffed. "You're a loser, Dad, a zero. I'm busy fixing your mess. Don't talk to me." He sped off, leaving Elias in a cloud of exhaust fumes. Later that afternoon, Elias was sitting on the cottage porch when Clara came out. She looked nervous. She was holding her car keys. "Dad," she said softly, I listed my car online, and I sold my jewelry. The necklace you gave me for graduation." Elias froze. "Clara, why?" "It's about $15,000, she said, her voice full of hope. "It's not millions, but it's enough to get an apartment in the city. A deposit. We can start over. I can get a job at a gallery. You can consult. We'll be okay." She was willing to burn her safety net to build him a raft. Elias stood up. He walked over to her and took the keys from her hand. He closed her fingers over them. "Keep the car, Clara," he said, his voice stronger than it had been in a week. "But Dad, trust me," he said. Tomorrow, everything changes." Sunday morning, exactly 1 week since his return. The sky was clear. The storm had passed. Elias woke up. He shaved. He showered in the small, rusted stall of the cottage. He didn't put on the dirty clothes. From beneath the floorboards of the cottage, where he had stashed a waterproof case, he pulled out a suit. It was a charcoal gray Tom Ford, tailored to the millimeter. He put on a crisp white shirt. He fastened his platinum cufflinks. He strapped on his Patek Philippe watch. He looked in the mirror. The beggar was dead. The Titan had returned. He walked up the driveway. He didn't slouch. He marched. He entered the main house without knocking. He walked straight into the dining room where Beatrice, Silas, and Julian were arguing over legal documents. "We need to liquidate the art collection before noon," Silas was yelling. "But the Chagall is mine," Beatrice cried. "Silence," Elias said. The word wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a gavel strike. They turned. Their mouths fell open. Elias stood at the head of the table. He looked immaculate, powerful, terrifying. "Elias?" Beatrice stammered. Where did you get those clothes?" "Dad?" Julian looked at the watch on Elias's wrist. Did you steal that?" Elias ignored them. He placed a small metal device on the table, a hologram projector. "Sit down," he commanded. They sat. Clara came running in from the hallway, breathless. "Dad, I saw you leave, are you?" She stopped, seeing him in the suit. "Come here, Clara," Elias said gently. He pulled out the chair to his right. "Sit." She sat, confused. "I have a confession to make," Elias said, looking at his family. "The company is not bankrupt. The accounts are not frozen. Thorne Global Dynamics just posted its highest quarterly profit in history this morning." He tapped the projector. A screen materialized in the air, showing the bank balances. 9 figures. Green. Healthy. Growing. "It was a lie?" Silas whispered, his face draining of color. You lied to us?" "I tested you," Elias corrected. His eyes were cold fire. "I wanted to know who my family was. I wanted to know who would stand by me when I had nothing to offer but myself." He looked at Beatrice. "Beatrice, you worried about your social calendar while I told you I was homeless." He looked at Silas. "Brother, you kicked dirt on my shoes and worried about your stipend." He looked at Julian. "My son, you called me a sewer rat. You were ashamed of my existence." The room was silent, suffocating. "I built this life to protect you," Elias said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. "But I only crippled you. I raised parasites." "Dad, wait," Julian started, a desperate smile forming. We were panicked. You know how it is. Stress makes people say crazy things. We love you." "Yeah, Elias." Silas jumped up. "I was trying to motivate you. Tough love, brother, tough love." Elias reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a leather folder. "This," Elias said, "is the new restructuring of the family trust. Effective immediately." He slid the papers across the table. "Silas, you are removed from the board. Your stipend is canceled. You have 0 equity. Julian, you are fired from your VP position. You have been disinherited. If you want money, go build something. Beatrice, our lawyers will be in touch. I'm freezing your discretionary funds. You can keep the house, but you'll have to pay for the staff yourself." "You can't do that!" Beatrice screamed. "We are your family." "No," Elias said. He turned to Clara. He took her hand. "Family is the person who holds your hand when you have nothing. Family is the person who offers to sell their car to save you. Family is the person who isn't afraid of the dirt." He looked at Clara with infinite pride. "Clara, I'm stepping down as CEO next year. I'm creating a new philanthropic division. It controls 40% of the company's assets. I want you to run it." Clara stared at him. "Dad, I don't know anything about business." "You know about people," Elias said. "You know about kindness. That is the only business that matters. The rest I can teach you." Elias stood up. He buttoned his jacket. "The rest of you," he said to the stunned trio at the table, "have 30 days to figure out how to live in the real world. I suggest you start by learning how to make your own coffee." He offered his arm to Clara. "Shall we go, my dear? I believe you promised me breakfast." Together they walked out of the dining room, leaving the gold, the marble, and the hollow people behind. Elias Thorne didn't lose his family that week. He found it. He found it in the small, brave heart of his daughter. He learned that the empire he built wasn't made of steel and shipping containers. It was made of the moments when you choose love over fear. The others? They learned a lesson too. They learned that when you worship money, you end up poor in the only currency that counts. This story is a reminder to us all. Look around you. Who would stand by you in the rain? Who would hold your hand if the bank accounts hit zero? Cherish those people. They are your true wealth. If this story touched your soul, if it made you think about your own life, please support the channel. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and hit that like button. It helps us create more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, I choose love. Until next time, keep your light burning.